Chelsea faced Brighton this weekend in an absolutely massive game for both teams, so I thought what better way to prep for the game than doing a combined 11. Now, before we get into this, please do smash the like button and do subscribe and comment below your thoughts on mine and do your combined 11 as well. So we'll start off with the goalkeepers. The choices are Verbruggen, Sanchez and Steele. Wow, now this for me is a really interesting one, especially with the fact that you've got Robert Sanchez, who is a former Brighton player himself, which just adds another layer to this discussion. But for me, Verbruggen and Steele have both been good goalkeepers this season, but I'm still not convinced on the whole system with De Zerbi, with the way that he rotates keepers, just to start with. So I'm going to move away from them and talk about Robert Sanchez, because I think Robert Sanchez this season has been a player that's kind of gone under the radar quite a bit. I've really liked him this season. I know he gets a lot of stick, but I think that is just kind of the pressure as when you are a goalkeeper playing for one of the big six, let's be honest. There's always a bit more scrutiny, but overall I think he's had a good season so far. He's quite high up in the save percentage. He's in the top 10 goalkeepers, so he's not had a bad season. So I'm going to go for Robert Sanchez as my goalkeeper. Now moving on to the right back position, we've got either Veltman, Lamptey, Gusto or Reece James. Now this is a really interesting one, especially off the back of Reece James getting his red card against Newcastle. Straight away talking about that, it was just awful, wasn't it, from Reece James? Let's be honest. That is not something you kind of think of when you think of him. In recent years, I've spoken about this guy being arguably one of the best, if not the best right back in the world, and he's kind of let himself down. But since he's come back in the side this season, he's already had 3 man of the match performances, so I really like him. We'll talk about Lamptey, a player that we know is quality, but just can't ever seem to get the game time. A lot of injuries. A player that's quite exciting, but he's just not consistent enough. Gusto has been better than a lot of people expected. Probably got a lot more game time than people expected because of Reece James being injured. He's been pretty good defensively, not too sound. Like we've seen him make quite a few mistakes, specifically like you think in the Arsenal game when he left his man for the goal right at the end. He's not a bad player, but for me, he's not great. Like he's not a starting player. He's a kind of bench player. He's a squad player. Veltman, you know exactly what you're going to get from him. Formerly a centre back, moved over to right back. He's consistent. He's not the most exciting player, but does the job. He's a proper 7 out of 10 every week. He's the kind of player that you want in year 11. A player that kind of goes unnoticed. But I think it's got to be Reece James in this situation. Obviously, I know off the back of that result, but we're going to talk about as a whole. That's so I'm going to go for Reece James at right back. Now, onto the centre-back pairings. Now, there's a lot of centre-backs, especially at Chelsea, because they seem to have a squad of centre-backs. We've got Thiago Silva, Badiashile, Trevor Chalobah. We've got Colwill. We've got Fofana. We've got Webster, Dunk, and Van Heck. Now, the 3 players I want to talk about straight away that are just unlucky to miss out are Van Heck. Van Heck, I think, has been really good this season. A young defender, tall, very good on the ball, though, kind of really fits into this Brighton system. I think he's had a good season so far. Webster, another player that you know exactly what you're going to get from him. A player that has kind of revolutionised the way he plays, has really suited this De Zerbi side, really worked well in the passing out from the back. Then I think Fofana we can't really discuss because he's not really ever been in the squad. Colwill, I think, is unlucky to miss out. I think maybe in a year's time Colwill will make it into this combined 11, but right now I just don't think he's good enough. I'm still not completely convinced. I think maybe a season under the wing of Thiago Silva and then he can kind of progress with his play and things, because we've seen him play at left back at points this season, but for me, not starting. Chalobah, I don't think there's much to talk about really, is there? I don't think he's good enough. Badiashile. Now, I don't think he's a bad defender, but personally, I don't think he's on the level of the rest of them. I think he is, again, another youngster that can come good. And Thiago Silva, I think he's massive for these kind of players, especially with Chelsea, with there being so many youngsters in this squad. They need these kind of players that have been and had the experience that can kind of drive these other players on. But the 2 I'm going to go for are Thiago Silva and Lewis Dunk. Now, I know both of them had absolute stinkers this weekend just gone. Lewis Dunk abusing the referee and getting a red card, and Thiago Silva, we saw him make a few errors. But I'm trying to move away and try and push it aside recency bias, because overall these 2 have had a very good season and some very good years recently. Lewis Dunk getting back into that England side. Thiago Silva seems to be playing, and he will be playing for decades ahead because he just never stops. I don't think he will ever stop now, but he's been very, very good this season and one of the stronger players in that side. So it's going to be those 2. Now onto the left back situation, we've got Chilwell, Cucurella and Estupiñán. Now I think it's Chilwell. The problem is we don't see enough of him, so I can't really put him in this team in my opinion. I'm still not entirely convinced of as a left back. I kind of prefer him when he's pushed on a little bit further forward as a left mid. I know that might be a little bit controversial, but I don't think defensively he's strong enough. Cucurella has been very good this season, a lot better than people expected, but I do think Estupiñán is by far the better player. Now, a player that it's mental to think they replaced Cucurella with Estupiñán for literally a tiny percentage of the price they sold Kukurea for, but he has been absolutely massive for them. I'm still surprised he is still at Brighton. I'm surprised one of the bigger clubs haven't come in and come knocking on the door and bought him. But yeah, Estupiñán straight away into the left back position. Now into the centre midfield. Now we're going to play 4-4-2, by the way, in this formation for my team. The midfield choices, we've got the centre mid-wise. We've got Enzo Fernandez, Chukwuemeka, Conor Gallagher, Caicedo, Lavia, Milner, Dahoud, Gilmour, Lallana, and Pascal Gross. Now the one that I want to talk about straight away is Pascal Gross. Now this guy is a completely massively underrated player, and a player similar to what we spoke about when it comes to Veltman, a player that kind of goes under the radar because he's just so consistent and sets such high levels. He's getting 5+ goals and assists every season now for Brighton. He's the highest goal scorer in Brighton's Premier League history. He's a very good player, very, very consistent, but just about misses out. He's a player I wanted to talk about. Lallana, you know what you're going to get from him. Very technically gifted player. Gilmour, a player that is formerly from Chelsea, and I really like him. I think he's really improved this season especially. I think he's been a lot better. He's nearly there. Dahoud, personally, I expect a little bit more. I know he'd be a technically gifted player, but I've just not seen enough of him yet that at the level that I expected when you saw highlights of him from the Bundesliga. James Milner, consistent, solid player, definitely suited to the Brighton system. And it's what we spoke about earlier when you talk about the likes of your Thiago Silvas and players like that who... James Milner will be massive for those youngsters that are coming through in this Brighton side. Kind of a player that has won absolutely everything, a really good player, and they can kind of look to, turn to, and he can give them the experience that they need and help them and give them pointers and things. Now, talk about the Chelsea choices. Chukwuemeka, who's been playing in more of an advanced role, but at the end of the day, he's a centre midfielder, but he's not been playing that. He's been playing in more of an advanced role on a wing and things like that. Caicedo, I don't think personally is good enough at the moment. He's been quite disappointing since being in a Chelsea shirt, because I know a lot of people say I'll give him time, but a £100 million player who was formerly playing the Premier League, you kind of expect a little bit more personally. I don't know about what you think. So yeah, I don't think Caicedo makes a team. Lavia, we haven't seen anything of yet. If he's anything like he was when he was at Southampton, then potentially he could be knocking on the door and getting into this side, but we don't know yet. He's still not fit. So I'm going to go for my midfield two of Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher. Now, Conor Gallagher is a player that I'd spoken about that I wasn't really impressed with. I'm a West Brom fan, so I saw him at loan at West Brom a couple of years back in the COVID season. A player that I really liked at our club, but I'd never thought he was a Chelsea kind of player, but he kind of has risen to the occasion a bit more recently. Like, we're starting to see a better player. I still think he's got another level to go if he's really going to truly be a Chelsea captain, but he's slowly getting there. A good player, but I just want a little bit more. But I do think he's probably the best out of this bunch. And Enzo Fernandez, a player that I really like. I think he's been very good so far for Chelsea this season. A kind of player that, for some reason, because of the day and age that we live in, where we've got to talk about goals, we've got to talk about assists, people don't talk about what Enzo Fernandez does. He's technically gifted, and he moves the ball constantly, kind of sets the tempo for the game. I really like him. I think he's been really solid this season. So the two in midfield I'd go for is Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher. And now onto the front two. So I've put all of the attackers in one massive list here. So because there's so many to choose from with these two sides, because they're both these teams are free flowing scoring sides. So we've got Raheem Sterling, Mudryk, Madueke, we've got Nicholas Jackson, we've got Nkunku, we've got Cole Palmer, we've got Ansu Fati, we've got João Pedro, and Enciso, Matoma, Ferguson, Welbeck, Solly March. There's so many good players in here, and it's ridiculous. Like, when you look at these two sides, these are both the strong points for both sides. It feels really harsh having to pick the front four kind of thing. I know it's a 4-4-2, but I'm pushing my wingers back into midfield onto the left and right. But we're talking about all these attackers. Altogether, there's absolutely loads of choices, but I'm going to say straight away I want Raheem Sterling on the one wing, because Raheem Sterling has been so good this season, kind of really stepped it up. A kind of player that since he's been in a Chelsea shirt, I'd say he had a disappointing season last season. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Probably Sterling himself would say it wasn't up to the standard he was at before when he was at Manchester City, but this season he's really grabbed this team by the scruff of its neck and kind of carried them through a lot of bad situations, and I think he's been very, very solid. Then on the other side, I would like to have I feel bad not picking Solly March, because I think he's been really, really good, but I just don't think he's quite there when you compare him to Matoma. I think Matoma has been a lot better this season. Matoma is so good. A player that we speak about all the time, dribbling wise, is one of the best, if not the best in the league. He's an absolute joke. So many other players we could have spoken about, but we're going to skim through it and go to the front two. Now, the front two I'm going to go for is Cole Palmer and Evan Ferguson. Now, I love both of them. Two great youngsters in the Premier League, both getting on the score sheet, both leading the lines for both their sides. I know Palmer's been playing on the right wing at points and false nine, kind of flickering between the two. So I thought, do you know what, I can squeeze him in at top, because the two of them have been absolutely unreal. But that is my combined 11 for Brighton versus Chelsea. Now, I'll do my quick prediction as well whilst we're here. I personally think Chelsea are going to win this 2-1. Yes, you heard me. Obviously, there's going to be goals going both ends. I think it's going to be an absolute car crash of a game of football. It's going to be end-to-end. It's going to be so exciting to watch on Sunday. I cannot wait. But yeah, there's my prediction. So I'll run through now my Chelsea and Brighton combined 11. In goal, we've got Robert Sanchez. Right back, Reece James. Centre-backs, Thiago Silva and Lewis Dunk, with Estupinan at left back. Left mid, we've got Raheem Sterling, with a midfield 2 pairing of Conor Gallagher and Enzo Fernandez. On the right-hand side, we've got Mitoma, and front 2 of Evan Ferguson and Cole Palmer. It's a very, very strong team, but as I said, let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on my combined 11, and thank you for watching. Please do like, comment and subscribe. There'll be videos coming loads. There's loads coming your way, so stay tuned. Thank you. Bye-bye.